Welcome, I'm Faye Waterman and this is Talking All Things Business. And today my guest is Peter Hursey, the wellness property doctor. And Pete's been talking about various things over a little while, and he's spoken about health stresses, environmental stresses, geomancy, and today his session is about emotional stresses. So welcome, Peter, and let's talk about the emotional stresses that you help people deal with.
Morning, Faye. Yeah, pleased to be on your show again. Thank you very much. Yeah, emotional stresses. It's one of our biggies. So the two big ones on our health stresses basically are environmental stresses and emotional stresses, and we can't get away from our emotional stresses, and they're usually baggage that we're carrying from our past, whether it's in our not too distant past or way back when, possibly even past life stuff. So can be quite interesting. Now, emotional baggage, it often comes from our relationships and our path through life anyway, and all the events that happen that make that life up. And
work, life, and play.
Yeah, and it is what makes life, I suppose, and it makes us who we are, and it shapes us and forms us, and makes us the people we are. And if we're open to looking at stuff as lessons, then we don't carry one side of the baggage. We've got balanced baggage, and we're not walking lopsided, so we can look at something as a lesson, not as something that's just happened to us.
But how many people look at that baggage as a lesson and kind of balance it up, and how many people are walking that emotional line unbalanced? I'd say there'd be quite a few, wouldn't there?
I'd probably guess 99% of us, and even us included at times. It's with a little bit of knowledge, you can actually look at that sort of stuff and understand the universal laws sitting behind that govern how that sort of stuff works with us. So let's just imagine something that maybe you've grown up and maybe you were abused as a child or something like that, and then you're lopsided, you're carrying that baggage. And you're only looking at that and you're keeping that as a crutch. I can't move forward in my life because this happened to me. I can't do this because that happened to me. It's an excuse for not moving forward, and we all carry it. But when you actually get that consciousness, it's a victim thing, yeah. But when your consciousness comes up a little bit, and you can look back across there and say, okay, that happened to me, but now I am this strong, resilient person with all these gifts because that happened to me. If nothing happens to you in your life to make you want to change, then you'd never change. You'd be 50 or 60 still sitting in mum and dad's lounge room in a beanbag eating chips, drinking their beer, and you've never moved on in your life. So the universe puts things in front of us so that we're not, so that we're not really. So we make change, and if we don't make change, the universe does it to us. How does that sit with you, Faye?
That sits quite well with me, thanks, Pete. And it's interesting that, you look at it as baggage, and we've spoken before about the backpack on your bag with the bricks in it that we're carrying around with us, and how the emotions can add to that backpack, the weight of that backpack, or we can actually work through the process and get rid of those bricks out of the backpack. And with life, I mean, we can control certain circumstances and we can't control others, and we can choose to change things or not change things. So when you're working with somebody, when they've asked you to come into their home or into their workplace or wherever it might be, and they're dealing with emotions, how do you work with them?
It's a good question, Faye. Sometimes it's hard to explain some of this stuff because we're living with universal laws. We can't move away from universal laws. They affect everything we do, and we're probably not the highest being out there, so we can only understand certain bits and pieces of it from our current consciousness. And as your consciousness, as we learn and grow, our consciousness comes up and we see the same information from different perspectives. So a lot of what I do is with two main laws. three main laws. One is the law of attraction, one is the law of duality, and the other one, I think it's the law of neutrality. So just imagine that there's a consciousness scale, and it's a vertical scale here. And okay, we've got this pendulum that goes backwards and forwards. So okay, you've been abused as a child, and then it goes bang, hit you on the other side. You know, you fall over that side because you're unbalanced. Then it comes back again, and it keeps going backwards and forwards until you actually look over here and look at that lesson. And when you've learnt that lesson, instead of that pendulum going backwards and forwards, it stops and it comes to the centre. You've learnt the lesson, and then you evolve and you go up that scale of consciousness. That makes some sense? That's the law of neutrality coming in there.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and until there is an awareness there that you're actually doing that sort of thing with that pendulum swing, nothing changes until someone comes along, such as yourself, and creates that awareness, so then the changes can start to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a facilitator or a catalyst, and a lot of these changes don't take place unless someone like me is there to sort of facilitate the process to happen. And you know, we've all got to deal with our own stuff, and it's probably worth my while going back through that model again about the yellow brick road. Is that okay, Faye?
Yes, it is, absolutely.
So the yellow brick road actually does describe a little bit of these laws, and it was put together by a very spiritual guy called Baum, who's very high up in the Grippers, the Masonic Lodge. And as we know, they've come down and they've descended from the Knights Templar, etc. And the yellow brick road is from the Wizard of Oz, and yellow being life's path, solar plexus, so that's where we're going. So the model that I've come up with, that I work with, this is how my consciousness sees the world, is that the yellow brick road is a number of checkpoints or lessons that we need to learn in life, and it's a bit like orienteering. We've got to work our way through it. And if we miss a checkpoint for some reason, or we trip over on the road along the way, we pick up some emotional baggage, and here's these bricks in our backpack, and that can leave us unbalanced, etc. Making some sense?
Making lots of sense, yes. And I like that analogy of the brick road.
So what I do is I basically energetically, when I'm working with you face to face, or online usually, I pull those bricks out of your backpack. I go and find where those things have happened, where you've actually failed to meet one of those checkpoints, and I lighten that load for you. I actually take those bricks out, and we balance that pendulum from those bricks, and you evolve. And what we do also is we ask the universe for the lessons associated with it. So you balance the pendulum, come into the center, and then you evolve, and you come up, and then you're ready for the next lesson. And those bricks can be all sorts of places. So in this life or past lives, the way I think of it is that we have many bodies that we pop into. Maybe we cark it, big high five for the next body coming in. We pass the backpack across, and then the next body picks up our backpack that we've developed, and they're going to carry it to the next stage. So hopefully you're handing it to the next body a little bit lighter.
I don't like that carking business, you know. It's like, oh, hello. But there are people that are skeptical about future lives and coming back as something else, or you either go to heaven or hell or purgatory or whatever it might be, depending on how good, bad or indifferent you've been. But we're all a spirit living in a physical body with an intellect. And so our physical body leaves, but we still have our spirit there somewhere. But where does it go? Who knows? And does it matter? Yeah. So it's really interesting, and I would have called it all hoo-ha and all the rest of it once upon a time. But now having and I'll say a basic understanding of all this, the law of attraction and the universal laws and things, it makes sense if you want to sit and read and understand. And the way that you work, Pete, with people virtually and face-to-face, and you can do both, and you do it all around the world. So you have clients overseas and they're virtual. You do work here, you do work with me, you do work with lots of other people as well, to just clear and create some clarity or some balance in people's lives. When you do that, and I'm going to ask this question because I can, and it is, what do you do for you when you've actually done a clearing or worked with somebody? Because there's lots of ghosties and all sorts of icky things that come from working with people. How do you protect yourself from taking that on board?
Yeah, okay. Interesting question, Faye. You pushed me in the corner here.
And I'm hoping there's some self-care there.
Yeah, I'll explain a few more little concepts because that'll probably help me in that space.
Yeah,
so I'll start with saying that protection is actually a fear-based word.
right.
And whenever we're in a state of fear, we're open to being harassed by other parasites that are out there, okay? So just imagine we've tripped over, we haven't made one of the checkpoints, and we've got all these emotions that are all raw and sitting there. And then you have parasites that come in and feed off those, okay? And they suppress the memories and hide some of those memories, but they keep feeding off them. So often they're hungry because they'll grab a thought and they'll put it in your brain. And then you'll think, oh, you've got that thought that's circulating in your brain. You can't get rid of it. This person did this to me. Oh, what am I going to do that? You get this repeated thing, and then you're basically feeding parasites. And we're full of parasites anyway, whether you like to acknowledge it or not. We're full of germs and bacteria or some of that. But if we get thrush or candida or something like that, those bugs will actually mess with our brain, and we crave sugar. And these things are no different. They actually like craving sugar. They want fear, so they'll put something in our mind to actually create that thing to happen.
And create a fuzzy brain, a foggy brain, as we call it. These sorts of things create a foggy brain where you can't think straight, or you think you're thinking straight, but you're not really. You don't have that clarity. So when you clear all these bugs and bits and pieces, the foggy brain goes away, and you've got more clarity to think about the things that you want and how you want your life, and realise that there was something going on, but you feel different. So there's some more clarity in there.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, when you've got rid of those emotions, and we put those lessons in, you have evolved as a being, and you see the same information but from a new vantage point. So you do look at the world differently. So we've got these emotions sitting here, and these parasites that are feeding on them, etc. And I believe if you go to a therapist and they want to talk about these issues, then if you're putting in the law of attraction, you're actually keeping yourself in the same vibration as those vibrations that were already there. So you're going to suppress those, and that's just. I'm not having a go at any other forms of that deal with the stuff out there, but if you're taking it back to universal laws, then those are likely to be suppressed, and they can be used again later on down the track. So what I'm doing is actually going out and finding where all these emotions are through your collective lives, and I dissipate these. I balance the charge over them. So we balance that pendulum over them, put in the lessons, and these parasites, then basically they bugger off because there's nothing to feed on. So when you're talking about protection, I look at creating a place of safety, and I find that the less of this emotional stuff I've got going on, the less attractive I am to pick up this other stuff.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, and it's all about how you think. And if you're thinking those yucky thoughts all the time, or there's repetitive thoughts coming in, you can help move those, and as you say, get rid of them, take them up there so that you have that clarity. And I mean, most of the time, or a lot of the time, we think in our head instead of thinking with our heart. And
definitely.
And we tell ourselves stories. So these are the things that you can go in. You don't need to know what it is, do you, to be able to work with it? And that's the interesting thing as well. You don't need to know what the emotion is or what the past emotions are. You just go in there and you, can I say feel, or have a sense of something there and you can work with it to make it dissipate?
Yeah, I get a feeling of what's there and how icky it is, etc. And I do a lot of yawning and coughing, etc. as those things shift. And I usually find the person on the other end of the line who I'm actually working with, they're doing the same thing. They're yawning in sync with me. And towards the end of the session, usually they start to feel really relaxed and their mind's just dead still. All that noise and clutter is sort of gone for a period of time anyway. And then it takes a few days to integrate those changes, because you're not the same person any longer. You've actually evolved and you're seeing the same things from a different perception. And I also believe that a lot of our paradigms are in this space too. A lot of those paradigms are what kick in, and they're the things that drive a lot of these emotions and things as well. They lock in some of these emotions. So, okay, you're told to be seen and not heard as a child, and then you get to our age, and then we want to talk publicly like we're doing now, and we sabotage ourselves from doing it because we're here to be seen and not heard, because that paradigm's kicked in.
That's why I do what I do, so that I can give people voices. It's interesting because when you know, some people will be really quite skeptical about this, but they have to experience it first, and I have experienced it firsthand and over a period of time. And it's not just a one-off thing, is it? It's something that, it's a bit like maintaining a healthy body and a fitness. So this is something that needs to be maintained and monitored on not an everyday basis, but, you know, every couple of months or every 3 months, 6 months or 12 months or whatever it might be. But it's also making that person that you're working with aware if there's something coming up, that they can connect with you and say, I'm just feeling something that's not a good vibe here. Can you take a look? Yeah, very, very important, Faye. What I give you is a contrast between a noisy mind and a quiet mind, where you can actually do things and bring in your thoughts and your inner stuff. So if you're getting a noisy mind or you're feeling depressed, etc., you probably only you've noticed a step change in your consciousness and in your day-to-day feeling. But after, say, a week or so feeling like that, that'll be the new norm for you. So then you won't actually realise that you're going down the gurgler and you're actually picking up more bricks in your backpack and sometimes escalating. And you're not knowing it any longer. You're losing all your bearings and things. Some people go into a deep hole of depression and stuff with that. So certainly for me, I've helped people that have had PTSD from childhood traumas or work traumas, and even myself, you know, I've been through workplace bullying and that sort of stuff. And just the difference in it, when I can think about someone that bullied me, 4 years ago now, where I could, if I talked about it 3 years ago, I'd break into tears, and now I've got no emotions about it. The person's actually done me a favour, because he actually made me make the change I needed to make in my life. So I'm actually seeing the other side of that pendulum now. I've balanced it. And, you know, the person's done me a favour. Yeah, he's still a tool, but he's got to live with that. But I don't have any emotions in that space anymore. And isn't that a great thing? Because then you can take control of your own life and your own health and well-being, and find what you're really passionate about, or find what you are very skilled with, and go out and help other people. Because there is a lot of bullying in the workplace. It goes on today, and I've seen it. And it goes on in the schools, it goes on online, all those sorts of things. And there are terrible things that happen to people that don't get the opportunity to work with somebody like you to get rid of those emotional stresses that are building up without them realising, until such time that it may be too late.
Yeah, definitely. And it works hand in hand with what our earlier discussions were. If you're on certain stresses and phenomena on your property, they'll actually leave you vulnerable for these emotions and these parasites to sort of get set up and sort of more interfere with your life and not let you actually out to do what you're meant to be doing, and checking off those checkpoints on your yellow brick road.
Yeah.
So yeah, being in something like a negative vortex, etc., you know, having sleeping on them and having bad dreams and yucky information coming through and attracting yucky entities and things in there, and you don't realise that, you know, your house and where you live, where you spend a lot of time, sets up your foundations for your life. So that's why I work on the 2 levels. I try and set up your foundations by setting up your house with the geomancy and a little bit of feng shui stuff that I put in as well. And then as a second level, I try and work with people on that emotional level. And it's a pretty painless sort of session that I go through. And you're right in saying that you carve layers off. You know, there's one thing you never finish, because you're actually ticking off more checkpoints as you're living your current life. But all the stuff from the past, it's too much for you to deal with in one hit. So it seems to only come off in layers. So I sort of run a 1.5 hour session, and we carve off all the layers that we can see, and we go back to find where it is, and we process it. And I do most of the work and have a bit of a laugh and a joke, and we deal with some pretty serious stuff, but we enjoy our little session. Yeah. And you feel all the better, and you can then look at the world through a different set of eyes.
And it's really interesting, because while you were saying that, I was just thinking, you're saying about your home and the environment that you live in, but also it can be the environment that you work in as well. So you can be living in the place, and you can be working in the place at the same time. So therefore there's different energies, different emotions that are going on maybe during the day or whenever you work, as opposed to when you're in that home environment, which is your workplace as well. So there's a contrast there that needs to be balanced, and
definitely
a lot of the time is not, because you're not aware of it, because you're so busy concentrating on different things. So you're doing your housework, you might be doing some housework or washing or whatever while you're doing some work, and you'll do that and you'll do that, but your mind's not really clear either. So you can come in and look at the emotional side of living in the home, but you can also look at the baggage that is where that person works within the home as well, and to see what negative energies come up from there. So that they can be 2 different things, but you can clear both of them to bring them into harmony.
Yeah, definitely, Faye. And it's not just looking at you or yourself anyway, it's the people you interact with. If you've got a negative place in your office and everyone walks into that place, then their behaviour changes. Sometimes it's like step change, bang. They're like different people to deal with, and their personalities change, etc. And noticing that sort of thing happening and thinking, I wonder what that is, and having this little bit of knowledge about what we've been discussing, you can say, well, I know a little bit about that now. Maybe we can get someone to have a look at it and make some changes there. And I do surveys on properties for people fairly cheaply, and I talk about what I find on there and how I think it's influencing their life. I check the people out as well, their immediate family, and we look at it as a collective. Some people I check their offices and things out, and yes, sometimes also in the work environment too, you'll find that people will walk past the front door of your business because the energies at the front of the business in those phenomena aren't very nice, and other people will come in because they're not very nice as well, and they feel comfortable in that energy. So that's an understanding, really, okay?
That's an interesting concept, and because you can have 2 of the same businesses, as we've talked about before, and one will be very popular and the other one won't have anyone in it. It's like when you go and you're looking for somewhere to eat, and the place next door is very busy, and the place beside that has no one or very few people in it. So you continue on, and down the street there might be someone that's really busy and someone that's not right next to them. So the energies that the outside of a building can give is interesting as well. I don't know.
So they can also end up in a photograph phase. So you're trying to sell your building, or you've got an an ad for your business and you take a photograph, that energy is actually captured in that photograph. So people will be looking through a magazine, say, no, I don't like that house. I don't know why, just don't like it. And I just keep flicking through. And that's another thing to bear in mind, that these houses and things, you know the house in the street, and it's one that it turns over every couple of years, takes forever to sell, the marriage breaks up, it's back on the market in a couple of years' time. And there's typical houses that have got these sort of stresses and things going on in them. And when you know what to look for, you can say, yeah, well, I know what's going on there. All the business isn't going too flash at all. I was actually standing in a local cafe with my son waiting for some lunch, and we're standing right in the middle of a negative vortex. I think, bleh.
You could feel.
I thought, oh yeah, I'll be the special little fairy today, and I fixed it for them. I didn't tell them anything about it, and I went back probably 2 months later, and the change in the place was phenomenal. The whole place had a buzz to it, and the staff now had smiles on their faces, and they wouldn't be any wiser at what I'd done there. But sometimes you got to sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust around the place and pay it forward.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and particularly if you want to actually frequent a place, you don't want to be going into a place that has a negative vortex attached to it. So, that's what you do, sprinkle that fairy dust so that you can go back in there and feel comfortable, and everybody else that walks in there can feel comfortable, and the people that work there as well. I'm going to go back to that question I asked you. How do you nurture yourself when you take on all this baggage? Because, well, not necessarily take it on, but how do you maintain your own health and well-being so that you don't take on those negative energies? Because that can be easily done, taking on those negative energies. So what do you do to stop that from happening? I was going to say protect yourself, but it's not about that. After we've had that conversation, to stop yourself from taking on board any of the stresses that people have, that they get rid of, and you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't pick it up. I disperse all the stuff. But for me, it's an awareness of things changing around me rather than me focusing on it. So if I was focusing on, if I pick something up, if I got something that I've picked up, then I'm in that vibration all the time. But what I'll do is I'll see little signs around me. Okay, I've just had this thought pop into my head that's not very nice. I'd better check, and then I'll clear that space. But for me, it's about keeping my own vibe as high as I can. I do some qigong and some of those sort of rituals in the morning where I can, and keeping my own home as best I can. Usually learning whatever place I move into. I've got lessons to learn, so I'm usually learning new stuff when I move into a place and in a neighbourhood. But yeah, keeping your own vibe up, and I actually do this emotional stuff on myself nearly on a daily basis. I actually know when stuff's come up to be dealt with, and I found that's in my consciousness. It's come from deep down, and then I've got some stuff in my consciousness, and it's not necessarily the parasites putting stuff in, but it's there ready to be processed. So then I'll go and find where it is, and I process it. Same in the morning. Sometimes I think, I need another 10 minutes in bed. Another 5 minutes, hit the snooze button again. And I think, what's keeping me in bed? So then I'll actually say, okay, where are those emotions? Where's something there that's some sort of fear or something that's keeping me from doing that? I'll go there and I'll balance it, right, and then I'll just jump out of bed. Right. The screen's just gone all funny.
Yeah, it did. It just went all funny, but that's all right. My phone rang.
So it's not fixating on it. It's an awareness sort of thing, and I just get telltale signs now, and my consciousness has been moving forward hand over fist for the last year or so, and even in my goals. Here's one for you, Faye. We've both been through the personal development phases, and we all go back and do more studies. We work on ourselves, and we set these goals that are way out there that we don't know how to achieve, and then when we're reading through that goal of a morning, is the excitement of reaching the goal offset by the fear of how am I going to get there? So what I do is when I'm reading my goals, I'll actually balance those energies. I'll bounce those pendulums around my mission statement. The other thing you can do to also in that space is have some steps as a plan to get you there. So that takes some of that fear away. But if you get no idea, you still got to get yourself started. What's the first step that I need to take? So of a morning, I actually balance. I read through. I've got 2 pages of my goals and things that I want to achieve, and I work through what do I need to balance today. What's actually throwing some emotions up for me today, and I need to balance. And yeah,
that's a good awareness, because I mean, you know, you can read through your goals and do that and just go through the motions, but it's really actually reading through the goal, feeling the emotion, feeling the desire, the want to have whatever that goal is, but also being aware of the steps you need to take, and not in the back of your mind, because you can be reading something and thinking, yes, this is what I want, but I know I'm not going to get it, kind of thing, you know, telling yourself that story. So that's good what you do in the mornings of reading your goals and making sure that you have those steps and you have that awareness of what you want.
Also, the words can have a lot of power in them as well. So I actually make sure I've got the right words in those goals as well. So, okay, you usually write them in the tense that you've actually achieved it. So, Pete, you're a millionaire. And then my subconscious cops in and said, Pete, no, you're just a wanker. You're not going to get there. But if I put the words in that I am and I'm willing to be, and I am, then that takes a lot of that emotional charge off it. Just in actually just saying those words, it cuts off that fear factor that just cuts in as soon as you go to say it. So just choosing your words and having that all sorted out. And there's a little feng shui tip I've got for you. Not many of the personal development people actually put it in, but I put this or something better, so let it be God. So we don't necessarily know exactly what our life's path is. We give it our best shot, and sometimes we get some feedback and we get a different road on the yellow brick road to follow. So I put that in the bottom of it. So I'm attracting something better if there's something better that I don't even know about yet.
So
there's a gem for today.
This or something better, please God.
Yep. So let it be God.
So let it be God. Okay.
Or whatever works for you.
Okay. Interesting. Might just add that. It's really quite fascinating to because our language is very powerful, and a lot of the time when you're having conversations with people, particularly if they're feeling quite emotional, their language will be quite negative, and they won't even realise that it is how they're speaking until you pull them up on it, if you are game to pull them up on it. And to create that awareness of the words that we use, and there are a lot of words out there like I am, that's very, very powerful. And and we have to learn to use them, but learn to use them in the context that is going to give us the emotional well-being that we want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So it definitely does, Faye. So what I do is I like to get people's properties sorted. So I've got a foundation, and then we do some emotional stuff. But I also call it emotional balancing and coaching, because I actually coach people through this stuff as well. I help them with their missions and mission statements, and all the emotions and the pathway through that. You know, I've got lots of life experience under the belt now, and I like to share that as part of the process of doing the emotional balancing in sessions, etc. So I teach as I work with people. Okay. That's just the way I am, and that's part of my mission. Part of my mission is sharing what I've got and having an awareness out to the universe or to humanity that, you know, okay, you've been to a doctor or something and he's given you a diagnosis that you're not very, very happy with, and that sometimes there's hope, because the reason for that could be the emotional baggage, because that's dragging you down, or it could be something on your property, and there's people like myself out there that can help you, and there's more than one way of looking at it. You need to look at the total you and your environment, not just you sitting in a doctor's surgery, etc.
Absolutely. And
or in a therapist's lounge.
Don't even let me go there. It's interesting because we create the dis-ease in our life, which then down the track can create the disease that we develop in our bodies. and you can create that awareness so that then they can change their mindset, change the way they think, the way they feel, because they have an awareness and an understanding of how they can take control of who they are and what they do and how they feel and how they think.
Yeah, back in the driver's seat, Faye.
Yeah. So with the emotional stressors, what are 2 tips that you could give people to be aware of before they contact you, so that they kind of have a little bit of knowledge of, oh, I need to do something about what's going on in my life right now? What couple of tips?
Well, they need to take control. So if life's not going down the path that they want it to go, you're still on the yellow brick road. Have you got too many bricks in your backpack to actually get to the next stage? And so if it's not heading where you'd like it to, and you feel stuck and trapped and there's no way out, that's one thing. The other thing is that mind chatter. If you've got that negative thing happening all the time and you just don't seem to get rid of it, it's the same person or that same bully or something like that. If there's a bully in your life, there's a lesson to be learned. And I don't necessarily know what the lessons are, but we energetically put them in when we actually deal with the emotional balance.
And you're bullied for a reason, I would say.
Yeah. So
that you can take control of your life if you know that awareness is created and you've got the support in the background as well. Great. Okay, Pete. So next time, what are we talking about?
Putting it all together.
Yes, putting it all together. So, okay, that'll be an interesting one to have that conversation. Because there's so many things to learn about life and about how we can take control of our life and not have the stresses or the emotional baggage that we tend to take on board. So
we don't want to be motivated. We don't want to be motivated, Faye. We want to be inspired and living that inspired life. So if motivation takes effort, being inspired doesn't. You're just in there and you're doing it before you've even thought about it. That's where we want to get to. So
thanks, Pete. We'll be back in another month to talk more about what's going on. And I look forward to that.
Looking forward to it already. Thanks, Faye.
Thank you. I'm Faye Waterman. This is Talking All Things Business, and I'll be back again soon. Bye for now.